Good evening. Welcome to the Toon Review and our special show. Kind of looking back on last night's fantastic victory at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest 2, Newcastle United 3. A very exciting game. Goals at both ends of the pitch. We're going to talk about it today, myself and Stato. Paul's not here again, having problems with his back again. But we can deal with this, can't we, Stato?
We can indeed. It's fun to talk about winning.
It is indeed, yes. Anyway, if you are new to the channel and you haven't seen us before, hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 28,000 subscribers. You'll be joining a massive family. Membership's also available by clicking the join. Hit that thumbs up on your way out or during the show if you're enjoying it. And super chats are also available by clicking the donate button, the dollar sign beneath us in the chat. But we will get a few comments first. Michael Edison's here. Vincent NC just says Bruno. Evening to Tom. Geordie Ladd also. Wolfhard Benitian. ENA. Chippers is also with us. Mark Lines. Leon Boyle. Bob Black. Paul Hanson. Evening all. Bruno. Man of the match yesterday. He says PD Proudlock has returned from Nottingham. Paul Mann. I just said him having on. George T is also here. Hi, George. Geordie Rick, good evening to you. Ian Fleming's also here. Dominic Pasuto, Stevie B, Jackie Nicholson. Lots and lots of people in. Peter O'Keefe said, he says, I was out watching the match yesterday and they had Sky commentary on. It was truly appalling and biased. They definitely have an issue with Newcastle. I want to bring that up, actually. I mean, you can visibly hear Andy Hinchcliffe's sigh when we scored in disgust. And the first chance that Elanga had when he was clean through and Dubravka blocked him, he was nearly cheering. Hinchcliffe's got an issue with this. I don't know why. But I think they all have, Stato.
Yeah, it was a strange one because I saw afterwards there are a few Forest fans complaining that they were biased towards us, which I was extremely shocked about. I thought they were much more complimentary of Forest. There was more energy when Forest was sort of countering because we had a lot more of the ball in the first half. It was very much they were just chatting when we had the ball, but then when Forest broke, it was all exciting. So I must have been watching a different game to the Forest fans. But yeah, it was an odd one. I don't think it helped. The refereeing decisions were very bizarre for both sides for much of the game. So,
yeah, Paul says saw Sky Sports Social after the game and they were posting Forest players celebrating. I was wondering where the NUFC posts were. Yeah,
when Bruno scored the first goal, the Sky Sports post on Twitter was simply, "Oh, Newcastle go 1-0 up through Bruno Guimaraes hitting the back of the net." Full stop. Just default, robotic. And then when Forest equalised, it was exclamation mark, big goal. It was all they spruced it up. It was very peculiar, very, very odd. I don't know what they're playing out there. It's very strange.
It kind of said goal from Bruno, and then when what's his face, Hudson-Odoi got his deflected kind of his second equaliser.
Yeah,
wonder goal from Hudson-Odoi. I think it was deflected. I mean, it was never a wonder goal. Good evening to Rabbit In On. Hope you're well. Man United won at Villa today, so the gap's closed between us and Villa. Although Man United do maintain their little gap, and they're talking about Champions League now. The Man United fans,
of course, they are.
Geordie Ladd says one thing I took away from the game last night is that Wilson isn't back to full fitness. Let's see if we can find the teams. Are they still on here? I wonder. Let's have a look. This was the Newcastle United lineup from yesterday. Any shocks in there for you, Stato?
I think we're all a little bit surprised to see Gordon start, considering there were pictures of him in a boot leaving the game last week. I'm shocked to see him in the starting lineup. A little bit surprised to see Murphy not retain his place. But other than that, yeah, I guess the one everybody was talking about was Byrne, but I think we all knew he was going to play. So, but we will get to that.
Yeah. And Murphy apparently wasn't able to be used at all because of a slight pull he felt in the warm-up. There's the Forest lineup. I'd say a slightly stronger one than the one that played against us at St James's, because I'd say one year's a better striker than Wood, although they had Matt Sells in goal, of course. But that's their lineup. What do you think of that, Stats?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, they're missing Ibrahim Sangare, who's obviously away. And he's a cracking player, so they definitely missed him in midfield. I think they could have done with that. He should have ideally been the substitute for Yates, or maybe even started. Might have given them an extra few percent possession in that game, a little bit more control maybe, but we didn't have that to deal with. So yeah, it was decent. I mean, they'd got a lot of the right tools to try and hurt us in the counter attack. Niakate completely physically dominated Wilson and took him out of the game. So they had tools to deal with us and give us a tough game. And it was a tough game. We won 3-2. So yeah, they're not a bad side. You think they'd be a little bit higher up than they are in the table, considering how difficult they've been against us. But yeah, we'll see.
Indeed. But what was apparent from the start, Stato, was a slight tweak to the formation, which was very interesting to see.
Well, it wasn't an immediate. Well, I guess it was an immediate tweak. I mean, on paper, it's still our default 4-3-3.
Yeah.
But obviously, in possession, there were phases. This didn't happen all the time on all game, but there were definitely spells in the first half, especially where Trippier tucked inside and played as an inverted fullback, and he was part of the two midfielders in front of the back three. So it sat as Byrne, Botman, and Cher as the back three, and then you'd got Miley next to Trippier, which I was a little bit surprised that was how it was going to shape up. So it was Miley next to Trippier, and then we'd play with a front five when it'd kind of vary. So it'd be like a 3-2-5 in build up and when we'd got the ball. But it would kind of, it was funny. It's very much. I was watching some stuff on it today, and it's got shades of how Girona are playing in Spain at the moment, but they just do it from the opposite side. So it's their left-sided fullback and Daley Blin and stuff that tucks in and does a lot of things like that. Whereas ours is the other way around because we're right side favoured. It's really interesting to see the tactical changes like that, especially on the ball.
It was indeed. Let's do a few super chats and things. We've got a $4.99 super chat from Crow's Tail, super sticker, I should say. Thanks for that, Crow's Tails 88. Very, very kind of you, sir. James Walsh, been a member for 17 months. Bruno is a must player for us. Need to convince him to stay if an offer is accepted. Bournemouth feels like a must win now, or feels like no progress. Well, there was an interesting conversation at the end of the match with the Sky presenters, wasn't there, Stato? He kind of virtually said that Europa League, in fact, was the minimum. I think if we don't make Europa League, I think we may have to see him depart for Passage New. That's just the feeling I got from this chat. What do you think?
I don't know if it guarantees him leaving. I think you never know. He might be patient with us for another year if we don't get anything. But we're in the right kind of position to be pushing for a European place now. Hopefully for at least the Europa League spot.
Yeah,
based on where we are on the table. But yeah, he did say he still wants to push for the Champions League. At least, or what did he say? Maybe Europa League, at least Europa League, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't. There was no reference of conference. So he wants to play. He wants to play European football. He is one of the best players in the league, in my opinion. And I think, again, we've said this many times. I think you could slot him into any team. Any of that final 8 teams that get through to the Champions League sort of quarters and semi-finals. I think he could play for any of those teams, whether it's a Bayern Munich, a Man City, a Real Madrid. He's good enough to play for any of those teams. So we can't just, we need to get some form of European football for him. It's just necessary.
100%. NUFC Ollie's been a member for 9 months. He said amazing from Miley sitting in the 6th, letting Bruno progress forward. Yeah, I thought he had a fair game, Miley. We've got a 50 Danish kroner super chat from Samson Knight Dove. So happy we signed that Swiss striker talent in January. Really saying this at the moment. Yeah, he got his goal scoring boots on, hasn't he, Mr. Cher? And PD Proudlock, a £5 super chat. Fantastic to be there yesterday. And also, I became famous again this time on Match of the Day during Bruno's interview. I'll have to have a look at that. I haven't seen Match of the Day from last night yet, but I will do. I'll certainly have a look at that later. So thanks for that, Pete. Thanks for that to Samson Knight Dove and also the 2 members and Crow's Tails HA. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. So different tweaks to the formation. Also, an old favourite corner came out to give us the lead. One we saw against Brentford last season, virtually a carbon copy of it. Bruno pretending to be uninterested in what's going on in the box, on his kind of hands on his knees, looking down at the ground, has a quick look up, but bolts the far post. And meanwhile, Miggy's played it short for Trippier, who's whipped it in first time. Everyone's left Bruno at the far post, and he caresses a beautiful little volley into the bottom corner of the net. That's what a goal, 1-0 Newcastle.
Yeah, so it's obviously Bruno credited Mad Dog. I mean, he named him as Mad Dog Tinder, which is great. Very, very clever set piece routine. Of course, Bruno is outside of the area, making it seem like he's the player there for recovery or to recycle outside the box. When as soon as the short corner is taken, obviously once that's taken, the opposition start looking either at the play or at their man or a combination of both. So as soon as that play starts, Bruno makes the run to the back post, and he's allowed that space because everybody's a little bit preoccupied. I'm surprised that they didn't kind of cotton onto that as an idea. You should still have a spare man really to follow a runner like that, but it worked perfectly, and it was immaculate technique to hit that with his right foot. I mean, he described it as a trivela. He didn't know if he was going to go with his left or his right foot. I'm not quite sure if it was. I think it was a trivela, but instinctive. Just something you get from a Brazilian, isn't it? I think a lot of the English lads in the squad would have tried to have probably left-footed that. You let it come onto the opposite side, or maybe take a touch, or maybe do a diving header. I can imagine most old school English players just trying to dive in header that or do something with it. But no, not the Brazilian. Just punt it with your right foot into the corner. Brilliant first goal.
I think we have to talk about Bruno in a little bit more detail. He looked like a man with his shackles released, playing a bit further forward. His creative play was evident throughout the game, actually. He was a constant threat to Forest. They didn't know what to do with him. Just a fantastic performance from someone we haven't seen play that high up this season, wasn't it? He just looked like a man reborn. And that's without playing badly in the six, to be honest.
Yeah, so it was a funny shape in build-up. I don't know if you want to put the graphic up because I've kind of got the shape we were actually using. If you want to see where Bruno was floating. So it wasn't always like this, but on the ball, this is very much the shape we were taking in the first half and bits of the second half. It did kind of vary. There were times when it turned into a 4-2-3-1. When it obviously out of possession, it would go back to a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3. It very much depended on what we were doing at the time. But there was a lot of the first half looked like this. I'm not sure how many people noticed it, but Trippier very much coming inside, whereas normally he hugs the touchline, and that job got moved to Longstaff, who was sort of the furthest out. These two had a bit of a nightmare together, Longstaff and Miggy out on the right, and kept getting their wires crossed, and then we kept getting countered. Maybe Miley, they'd lose the ball, Miley steps, the ball gets switched out, and they just they've got acres of space here to run between Burn and Botman, and that is what happened on occasion. So it was more, don't lose the ball here, guys. And additionally, Miley maybe stepping up a little bit when he shouldn't do. But again, you can kind of forgive that as a youngster. And it worked really well. Really. Yeah, and Bruno was popping up kind of here. He was going central as well. Wilson dropping deep, and it was working. It was working really, really nicely, to be honest. And obviously, we've normally. I mean, I'll put us back in our standard shape, but it was very refreshing. It was strange seeing Miley there. I wouldn't have guessed that Miley would have been tasked with that job. I'd have thought it would have been either Bruno or Longstaff, because we've seen similar tests of this where Miley's gone really wide and hugged the touchline up there in certain games. Yesterday it was Longstaff's job to do that with Miggy. It didn't really work, but it did create us a lot of positives in other areas of the pitch. And ultimately, freeing Bruno up a lot is what got us the win, because he scored goals. So the tactical changes did make a massive difference. Again, fewer fixtures. We've had more time to work on set pieces and tactics and shape, and we won the game because of set pieces, tactics, and shape. It was just, I would say, it was more individual errors, losing the ball at the wrong time, stepping up at the wrong time. That was why we conceded goals. Well, maybe the first goal, and then the second goal was just a deflection, and Cher was injured and out of position. So I feel like the tactics mostly were okay.
We've got what have we got? Something here that Parkmeister has gifted a Toon Review membership. I don't know who that's gone to because I haven't got YouTube on at the moment, but you'll see in the chat whoever you are, and you can say thank you to Parkmeister, as we will indeed for that. Thank you, very kind of you, sir. Norvik says 2 candidates for goal of the month. Bruno's Parkmeister, Trippier, an inverted fullback. Well, he was at times, that's for certain. We seem to be diagonal at the time, says Ronald. And then Bruno O'Ray. I think that means the king, but I could be wrong. Paul says, people suggesting his team is Keegan-esque are deluded because we can't defend play like we are against Arsenal in 2 weeks' time when we are shipping goals to lower teams. Interesting point, that. I think we may go in a little bit more defensive against Arsenal, if I'm perfectly honest. So we're 1-up. Forest, then we are attacking. We look the better side. And then we get caught with a sucker punch where Miggy gives the ball away, trying to give it to Longstaff. As you mentioned there, Miley's a bit too high up the pitch. If he stands in the passing lane where Gibbs White passes through, the goal doesn't happen. But he isn't, as you said, he's 17. He's never played in the six before. Good pass from Gibbs White through to Ilanga, who's got the pace on Burn all day, every day. Dubravka comes rushing out of goal, rushing blood to the head, stops. If he carries on and clears the ball, fine. If he doesn't come at all, then I don't think the goal scored. Botman's getting round, but Dubravka makes up Ilanga's mind for him. He can leave him an empty net to roll the ball into, Stato.
Yeah, I mean, Longstaff and Miggy were dilly-dallying on that right-hand side far too often. And then, yeah, I do feel a little bit sorry for Miley, but it's an easy ball anyway. Whether it's played after Miley or before Miley, it's still a possibility to get that switch out or to get it to Gibbs White and get the counter attack going. It's just the danger of being that aggressive with your shape. If you lose the ball there, you're definitely open to it, especially when it goes to Gibbs White, Elanga on that side with the counter attacking team. And you've got all the pace in the world to kind of have at our centre halves. And I guess in that shape, you're classing Burn as a centre half in that kind of scenario. It effectively becomes a back three. And then, yeah, Dubravka, I mean, we mentioned it yesterday when we were live and when we did our Patreon as well. Dubravka obviously isn't a sweeper keeper. Tried to do a bit of sweeping. Thought maybe it was the right thing to do, and it absolutely wasn't. And he's just not got the right decision making when it comes to that style of goalkeeping. Whereas Nick Pope has been doing that for a long, long time. Like before we signed Nick Pope, we watched a little bit. We did a little bit of player analysis before we signed him, and the rushes, the sweeping, the defensive actions outside of his area, it was all there. He was all very high for it. Dubravka's never had that in his game ever. So I feel a little bit harsh. There's no point in us bringing him out for that because he's never had that in his game. If we, maybe he should have just stayed on his line. But I think he's trying. That's the thing. I think he's just trying. He wants to be that guy. So he thought that was maybe the right thing to do because he thought his centre halves were going to get rinsed. Yeah,
he should have carried on, Troy. He might have got his foot to the ball. Either way, I just don't know what he was doing, to be honest. Like you say, he's not got that in his bag to do that, but he made the mistake. He did kind of save us before that with a similar kind of attack with Elanga, and he got down and made himself big and blocked it. But the goal itself, I'd blame Dubravka for. Derek says stats over show average positions, trips was exactly the same as usual. When we were defending without the ball, without the ball, he definitely was. But with the ball, I think he definitely stepped inside a bit and
over the course of the game, that'll smooth out. And I mean, I've got the average positions up here, so the average positions are literally.
Stato's left the room. He's gonna have to sign back in. Oh dear, here he comes.
The average position's scared so much, it just kicked me out. So there's the average positions. So yeah, Trippier's a little bit further forward than number 2. So it was a back 3. You can kind of see the shape still there, right? 67 next to 2. And then Bruno in front of Miley. And then you've got to remember that in the build-up phases, 36 Longstaff was actually outside hugging the touchline. So the average positions aren't going to show you what we were doing in build-up necessarily. That's just going to be where they were over the entire match. So this doesn't really show. I'm trying to explain what we were doing in build-up. So this isn't a true representation of that because it was a little bit different. And sometimes Gordon in build-up would hug his touchline and make a long run. Wilson had come short. So this is just average positions.
And of course, if you look at that, you kind of see how Dan Burn is kind of on his own there, isn't he? You'd have thought there would be a little bit more cover around Dan Burn, but it worked. We got the result.
To be fair, tactically, I don't really blame Dan Burn completely. That the more we've analysed this, the less I blame Dan Burn. At the time, I thought, oh God, Burn's lost a foot race again. But the more we dig into this, we had 2 opportunities to stop that. In A, don't dally around with the ball when you've got Longstaff and Miggy there. You've got a triangle of Trippier, Longstaff, and Miggy, and then they lose it. And then Miley's in the wrong place and steps up. So there's two opportunities to stop that. And then of course Alanga's going to go free. Is it then Burn's fault that he's going to lose that foot race? He started running very early. He smelt the danger. He was just never going to be able to. He's just not faster. He's not. No. He wasn't even remotely close to being fast enough. I think they tried to mitigate it so he wasn't isolated in 1v1s, and it was the others that put him in that position. I don't know if people would disagree with that. I feel like that's the 2 situations that were created, the early doors one and the one that he scored from. I feel like that's kind of what happened, that it wasn't Burn. It was, we were trying to put fires out to stop that happening. But then obviously that raises another question. Should we just play somebody that can deal with that anyway? I guess it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one because Dan Burn, indeed. Obviously, we looked at data, didn't we, last night? And Dan Burn gave us 14 clearances, so he did so much well in other phases of the game. So
phenomenal amount of clearances for one match. Yeah, I thought Dan Burn actually had a good game, if I'm perfectly honest. At the stuff that he's good at, obviously. Jay Toon says we saw the best position for Bruno last night. He was insanely good. If we sign a 6 in the summer with Bruno and Toon Army in front of them, we'll have a real midfield menace. And add to that the depth behind them as well, with Joe Linton and people like that, and Joe Willock. Yeah, I think a 6 is imperative. And I think if Eddie Howe's learned anything from last night, that Bruno is much more of a threat for us, much more of an asset for us in a higher role.
Oh yeah, it was outrageous the strings he was pulling. I mean, we haven't really seen enough to be able to concretely say this is true, but I think Bruno's a better attacking midfielder than he is a defensive midfielder. Mm-hmm. And we've only really seen him as a defensive midfielder, and we all think he's one of the best midfielders that's ever played in a black and white shirt. So the fact that there is the potential for him to actually be even better in a different role is frightening to think how good he can be. Yeah, just releasing him is so much better. I think it's one of the reasons why he got that second goal is because he had a little bit more time. When he gets into those positions, when he's in a more restricted role, there's a lot more bodies in front of him, and he doesn't get that space. But he read it so well. He was just floating, edge of the area. He was floating. He read the pass. A lot of Forest fans blaming that pass was under hit. Not a chance. Gibbs White rooted to the ground, waiting to receive the pass. It's what we used to tell Maxi off for doing, and it was something he did wrong. It's just standing there and waiting to receive a pass. Bruno was switched on, moved to it first, intercepted, and then he had space to try and put it in the bottom corner. Is exactly what he did. He doesn't normally get the space and time to do that. So, yeah, and that there's more to come from him because it wasn't a game where he was getting sort of assists and pinging key passes around. That exists in his game as well. So there's even more to come, I think.
Derek says, play like we did yesterday and we'll lose more than we win. From an attacking point of view, I don't think so. But from a defensive point of view, maybe. This new system, it's the first game in it. So and to get a result playing that for the first time, I think it's quite promising, if I'm perfectly honest. Vincent says, we conceded the goal versus Luton in the exact same manner and shape that we did versus Milan. Seems we haven't learned how to defend these situations, or maybe it's that lack of a 6. We had 2 6s yesterday, so...
But he did say in his press conference, didn't he, that they were going to go and analyse the goals and analyse why that's happened. So they will try and learn from the mistakes.
Burn had 5 yards in him and then bang, Ilanga's gone. Yeah, I wouldn't say that was his fault. That's not Burn's fault, is it? He can't out being slower than Ilanga anyway. Even to you, Tony, hope you well. Lip reading the lads tonight, can't find the earbuds. Put it through your TV, mate, or just put it on telly. Unless your wife's got Coronation Street on or something. H. Ibrahim said I would play Hall in midfield. That's potential for that. If Dan Burn is to play, he must stay back if he wants to be a striker, convince Eddie. Well, we'll talk about the second goal now because Dan Burn had a minor role in that, I guess. But the real credit goes to the 2 centre-halves who combined fantastically. A terrific little header from Sven Botman into the path of Fabian Schär, who calmly caressed it into the bottom corner, and that gave us a 2-1 lead, Sato.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big predictor pre-match that they were lacking a bit of height. Niakate obviously is a man mountain, but generally across the rest of the team, they don't match up as well as we do physically. And it was another set piece goal. Botman rose tall, brought it back across goal, and then Fabian Schär does what he does best. And he was a winger or a striker in a previous life. And it was a very tidy goal. I heard some commentary stating that it was an easy finish for him. I think there was still a bit of work to do. You're a centre half, and it's getting headed across body from left to right. You've got to get your body shape right, and you've got to get a clean connection, and there's timing. He's a centre half. I thought that was quite a difficult finish for a centre half. So I think
yeah, absolutely.
They've really taken away Bruno's first goal and Fabian Schär's goal, the second one. I feel like they've really discredited how hard both goals were. I thought technically they were both quite difficult, and they got them spot on. I feel like they deserve a lot more credit for those two goals.
Stats, your internet's awful, son.
Oh, is it?
Oh
dear.
Right, let's get on to the Forest equaliser just before half time. Actually, it was over the allotted minutes that the referee had given. It was in the 6 minute or 5 minutes added on. But it was a very fortunate goal, a deflected effort from Hudson-Odoi, which wrong-footed Dubravka just nestled into the net. A really poor way to end the half, wasn't it? Mic's off, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm just running a quick speed test. We had guests around before we started the show, and they knocked some of the kids knocked the router off, unfortunately. So maybe the router's still recovering. So we'll be doing Hudson-Odoi's goal, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously my take on that is that doesn't happen if the Yates tackle on Schär is appropriately dealt with. Whether it's a card or not, but it needs to be sorted out properly. We need a free kick for it. It needed looking at least, and it came from him running at that side. They got the ball off something they shouldn't have had the ball. Miley did everything right block wise. It was just very unfortunate deflection. Dubravka was covering the side the ball was going to. Yeah, just an unfortunate one. I felt like that was a bit of a let off. It was lucky for Forest that they'd committed quite a bad foul and ended up getting quite a good advantage for that, which you shouldn't really do if you've cheated. In theory, that's what it is, isn't it? It's a foul. If you foul somebody, you shouldn't then get the advantage for it, and that's essentially what ended up happening. Lucky deflection. It happens. So we still managed to win regardless, but yeah.
Yeah, so half-time 2-2. Only one more goal to come. And that came from the Brazilian maestro again. And as you've already described it, actually, ball played to Gibbs, what is fantastically anticipated by Bruno. He comes onto the ball, takes it past one or two, heads for the area, and uses the Forest defender as a barrier, bends it round him into the bottom corner. Matt Sals gets a hand to it, can't keep it out, but a fantastic goal.
Yeah, it's a great goal. I mean, the XG for that is 0.1. So you score 1 in 10 of those, and he's got the quality. I mean, to be completely honest, that probably is about right, because we've seen him take that shot on quite a number of times and miss it and put it just past the post normally. But he got it spot on. He had a bit more time, fewer bodies in front of him, and he did bend it into the far corner. And it was deserved. He was the best player on the pitch yesterday. He's far too good for everyone else. He's just a level above generally. And he fully deserves it. He deserved his player of the match as well. He's outstanding. He really is. He dare I say it, obviously it is a team game. It is a team performance, but he won that game for us. He really did. I think your internet's catching up, Billy. I think it might be yours, mate, to be honest.
Yeah. I've just done a speed test. I'm fine. I'm hot wired in, remember?
Weird.
Anyway, let's discuss the referee, because we had made a brief mention of him earlier. he was awful, like you say, for both sides, wasn't he? He was. I mean, Ryan Yates. How did he get away with without leaving the pitch with a yellow card to his name? I'm not sure. How did Morgan Gibbs-White stay on the pitch? I'm not sure. Been booked, then committed another blatant yellow card of offence. And it was also bad for them, I guess. There was a couple of times where he let play go when there's definite fouls. What was your opinion of the referee in more detail?
Yeah, so a few times where I think he gave free kicks to us that were a bit light, and I don't always want to see that. A couple of times where there were blatant fouls on us. So Fabian Schär got kicked in the back of the leg, and they got, I think it was Murillo maybe, got none of the ball. That didn't get given as a foul. Of course, there were 4 fouls from Ryan Yates. No booking at all. So one of the challenges, in my opinion, should have been reviewed by VAR. So plus that it totaled a count of 4. How you getting away without a booking is beyond me. And then Gibbs-White. I mean, we don't want to see soft yellows and two soft yellows and it ruining the game, whether it's us or the opposition. But he was constantly complaining, getting in the referee's face, trying to start things. He was just picking the ball up and running away from Botman. I mean, what a moron trying to start a fight with Botman. That was silly boy. Botman just instantly tried to put him on his ass. So, and then Botman gets the yellow card for it. It's like, well, he ran off with the ball, mate. What do you expect? And then there was a foul towards the end of the game as well. And he's running up, getting in the referee's face. He's a lucky boy. He really is a lucky boy, because if he was in a bad mood, Anthony Taylor, he'd have made him walk. He probably deserved it. He was getting a bit big for his boots. But he stayed on the pitch. But yeah, it was just a really peculiar performance from Anthony Taylor. And I think it is really, really important that it is discussed, because we won. Because we don't want to be one of those fan bases where we're only whinging about the ref when we've lost. We've won this game. We were okay. We've got 3 points, but it's still important to highlight that it was a poor refereeing performance. Just on the whole, a lot of strange decisions.
Yeah, I think Gibbs-White's yellow was actually less than the one he got away with. We know when I can't remember who was breaking from midfield, but we were on a counter attack and he just dived on his back basically.
He didn't actually get a yellow card for any fouls. It was for the dissent, for the little squabble with Botman. He didn't. None of them, Yates or Gibbs-White, there were no bookings for actual fouls. It was just for gobbing off a bit, really.
We've got a couple of super chats here. Ian Fleming, £5. He said, I noticed our XG for the game was 0.050. Just shows how clinical we were. And Peter Bodefjord, AFC, 65 Swedish kroners. He says, good to see Eddie using a new formation that addressed a major issue previously, and it worked. And it did indeed. Forest had it was a pretty good claim for a penalty. VAR looked at it for a long, long time. What was your opinion on the matter?
What, the penalty decision, or the non-penalty decision?
Or a non-penalty decision, yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult to talk about when obviously we're biased, but I don't think it was a penalty personally. I can see why some people want it to be a penalty. Obviously, in the modern game, everybody's talking about, oh, well, there's contact. It doesn't mean it's a pen if there's contact necessarily. But it starts to become really subjective at that point. Have they thrown themselves down on purpose? Have they started going down early? Have they forced themselves onto the floor anyway? Were they already going down? Has the ball sort of gone too far away from them? Were they in control of the ball at that time? What was the defender / goalkeeper doing? There's so many different variables to it. And I think it would have been a very soft pen. I think he's, he was already going down, and then his trailing legs got into the armpit of Dubravka, and Dubravka's reaching for the ball. He's not even reaching at the player either. He's actually reaching kind of sideways and behind him to go and try and get that ball. I don't think that can be a pen. I think that would be really frustrating if we start seeing those kinds of things given as a penalty.
Yeah, 1 year he'd lost all control of the ball, hadn't he? Botman had got a little foot in there, and the 1 year he was going nowhere near the goal. He couldn't get control of the ball. I think he just basically decided to, as soon as he felt a little bit of a touch on him, he went down. I don't think it was a penalty. Although Abs did think it was a penalty. She says, I thought it was a pen, poor decision for Dub to put his arm up And PL Rich says the opposite.
Mm.
Player was looking for pen and dive. So it does split opinions, isn't it?
It's a subjective thing, so it's a tricky one. In my opinion, yeah, Dubs did put his arms out, but I thought he put his arms out sideways, slightly behind him, in the direction of the ball, looking at the ball, and he's gone into his armpit with his left shin. Like, I don't know. I guess that's contact. Does it mean it's a penalty? I don't know.
If Taylor had given it, they wouldn't have overturned it, would they?
Yeah, true. If Anthony Taylor would have awarded that as a penalty initially, I don't think they would have overturned it, because they would have just gone, well, not really sure if there's enough to overturn it. So it is a tricky one. It is a real tricky one.
Yeah, he was never in control of the ball. A pen would have been super soft, says Silence is Golden. Derek says, I would have been livid if it was a VAR Otis one, and I'm pleased we got it. JT Toon says, if that penalty incident took place at Old Trafford, Anfield, it would have been given straight away.
Yeah,
I agree with that. But
then you've got do you remember the Ryan Fraser one from Edison against Man City, where the ball had gone, however, Edison clattered him?
Yeah.
So technically Fraser's not in control of the ball. We didn't get the pen for that, but it was a foul. But because they'd lost control of the ball, they wouldn't give it. Apparently, a foul to then get a penalty is apparently more of a foul than a foul anywhere else, when in theory it shouldn't be. I think it's far too subjective, because everybody disagrees with it. All the pundits, pros, fans, everybody seems to be quite split with that. So,
indeed, but that was how the game kind of went on. We've gone through it. Time now for the player ratings. Get yours in the chat, and we'll have a look at them. We might as well start with where it starts at the beginning, with the goalkeeper. Starts out Martin Dubravka.
I'm going to give him an 8. I'm going to give him quite a good score. I do think that's quite generous because of the mistake for the first goal. However, I'm not blaming him for the second goal, because it was a deflection. He was rooted. It happens. But I really, really liked other aspects of his game in terms of his confidence. His general shot stopping and his claiming of crosses was exceptional, because they did try and bombard us at the end, and he was really, really good at coming for crosses. So I really liked that. And he's really, really good on the ball as well. He's much better than Nick Pope in terms of just on the ball, playing out from the back. He got pressed a lot, and he was really, really good at handling that. And we did manage to play out and have a bit of control more than the last few weeks. And I thought that was really important. So I'm giving him a high mark, guys. And I know people disagree, but he possibly could be docked a bit more for the goal. But I liked everything else. I thought he was good.
Well, I'll give him a 6. I do blame him mainly for the first goal, but as you said, he did a lot of good things as well. He did save us a few times, and generally his control of the area, his mastering the area is pretty good. And as you've mentioned, his work with his feet is a lot better than Nick Pope's.
His distribution, so he hit 26 out of 28 passes, and the 2 that he missed were 2 long balls. So 2 long punts didn't hit their designated target, but the other 26 were all spot on. His passing was immaculate, and it was everything except that one decision. That one decision to try and sweep was wrong. He messed that up completely. I don't think he did anything else wrong at all. Thought he was really good, apart from that one thing.
It's definitely splitting opinions. I mean, we've got to have marks as low as 3 and marks as high as 8. So,
I don't know how you can give him a 3 for that. I think that's harsh, unless the 3 is because of the mistake. Maybe. I feel like it's harsh downgrading so much for that.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, Jordan J. Jamie gives him an 8. I've given him a 6 in between, but I mean, James gave him a 3. Marsh thinks we need an upgrade over Dubs and Pope. They're both just okay.
We could do with merging them together. We need them to become one goalkeeper, because they've both got kind of different attributes. We could do with just sticking them together.
We could. We'll go on to Kieran Trippier, the captain, next. Stato, what did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was really interesting, him playing as sort of a funny inverted fullback. But then it changed in periods of the game where he was bombing forward and being a winger. His set pieces were spot on. Massive hats off for getting that 10 assists for the season. The first person to get double figures assists in a season for us since Laurent Robert, so that's incredible. I will give him. I'll give him an 8 as well. I feel like there's room for a little bit more, but I feel like I want to give him more because he's reached 10 assists, but it's about marking that game specifically. So I'll go for an 8.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone seems to be giving him an 8. Seems to be the mode score for him at the minute. So yeah, I thought he had a good game. Again, his assists led from the front as he always does. His passing was very good. I don't remember him getting beaten too many times, if I'm perfectly honest. So yeah, I'll give him an 8. Judy J's given him a 9. Paul Tully's given him a 9. And Tank 7's given him a 7. So yeah, so I guess 8's the median score for him. We'll go to the other side of the pitch now for Dan Burn.
You want mine?
Yeah, you go first.
That is a tricky one.
I'll go first if you want. I'm going to give him a 7 because I thought defensively, set pieces, all that stuff, terrific. We knew he was going to have problems with the pace of Elanga. For Elanga to cause problems to us 2 or 3 times in the whole match, I think he's done pretty well for himself, really. Although one was a goal, but I'm not going to blame him for that goal. He doesn't have the tools in his box to deal with that. So how can you blame him for bad play when it's not really? So I'm going to give him a 7. He had a good game.
I'm going to give him an 8 as well, as the others. I'm 3 8s in a row now. I really liked that there were certain things he was doing that he doesn't do quite as often yesterday. So there were 3 occasions, possibly even more than that, where he was just running into the opposition box as kind of an underlap, and it was creating space. So somebody had to obviously go and mark that as a front post threat because he's enormous. And that was actually the position that Bruno got space to go and get that shot away. Because you can't just leave a 6'7" guy in the front post. You can't. You have to go and sort that out. And it created so much space out wide for us, especially when Harvey Barnes came on. That I really liked that. That was really cool. Obviously, if we got countered, we were absolutely buggered. But fortunately, that didn't happen. But that was really, really creative. I liked that. Again, so many little tiny tweaks that people may or may not have noticed. Duels were impeccable. He won most of his duels. 13 clearances. I swear that said 14 yesterday. I think they've knocked one off for some reason. 13 clearances now. They've changed the stats, which is absurd. 13 clearances in a game is incredible. The more I think about it, the less I can blame him for the first goal. Because he started running. He was in the right position. He started running back immediately. I'm not sure what more you do as Dan Burn there. I'm not going to downgrade him because he's not faster than himself. I can't. That's not his fault. Eddie Howe's picked him, and all he can do is run at the fastest speed he can run. I don't feel like I can downgrade him for that. And it's an argument whether Tino matches that as well. It would have been tricky. So I'm going to go with an 8. If somebody wants to go lower, explain it. Because I'd be interested to know. I kind of liked what Dan Burn did yesterday. I think it worked fairly well.
Yeah, I'll give him a 7, but I'll kind of on the same page too, really. Right, let's do the centre half. What are we going to do first? Let's do Fabian Schär. Goal scoring maestro.
So Fabian Schär, I think he gets a tricky one. I'm going to give him a 9. I think he gets a 9. 9 out of 15 long balls is pretty ridiculous. That's crazy. 107 touches of the ball. Again, it was part of him being, that right-sided centre half in the back 3 shape. He just got a lot more of the ball, a lot more touches that he's very, very comfortable with. 1 out of 4 ground duels is a little bit funny for him, but Awoniyi was a bit of a handful. We struggled to deal with him at times. But yeah, the goal as well definitely bumps that to a 9.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 9. Fantastic finish for the goal, but generally defensively pretty good as well. And he gives us something different as well when he brings the ball out of defence. in the old days, he'd been a fantastic sweeper behind two centre halves. So you really would have been bringing the ball out, a la, I don't know, a la Mark Wright or Rio Ferdinand, I guess, could do it as well. Yeah, I'm going to give him a 9. I think he's a fantastic player. I really am glad he signed into the contract because he seems to be maturing like a fine wine with age, doesn't he? So 9 for Share. Sven Botman now, Stato.
Oh, this is a real tricky one. I'm going to give him a 9 as well. It would have been a 10 had he not lost that foot race with Awani in the second half. It was just a flat goal kick, a flat straight goal kick over the top of the defenders, and Botman got burnt completely for pace, which was a shame because he's kept pace with a lot of faster players recently. But he gets a 9 because he was outrageous. 124 touches of the ball, 104 out of 113 passes, which is a 92. I'm sorry, but when you're hitting over 100 accurate passes and you're still over 90% accuracy, that's bonkers. The man is a freak. 8 out of 13 long balls. There was some really good switches, really good straight balls to break the lines. He was very, very careful. 6 out of 6 aerial duels as well. He was swatting everything away with Dan Burn, and then the header across goal for the assist on top of that. Our centre-halves are starting to really, really help us at the other end of the pitch. They just need to stop it going in our own net a little bit more. But yeah, I think Botman deserves a 9. I think that was an outrageous performance.
The foot race, is that the one that led to the penalty appeal?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Well, he managed to get even then he managed to get a foot in on the ball, which kind of took the ball out of her when he used control. So even though he was outpaced, if you like, he still got a foot in the penalty area, although it was a desperate kind of lunge to do it. I'm going to give him a 9 as well. I thought he's just a fantastic player, though, isn't he?
104 passes is bananas.
Unbelievable, yeah. And he's the rock that holds it all together for me. He's a fantastic player. He really, really is. Let's go to Lewis Marley now at the anchor in midfield, or one of them.
A tricky one because he struggled in the second half. For the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes before he came off, he was starting to struggle. He was struggling to match the pace of the game. Maybe not in the right place or making the right passes. But prior to that, wow, it was ridiculous. Some of the stuff he was doing positionally, little body feints to spin his man and drive into midfield. He was the guy tasked of sitting next to Trippier in build-up. Magnificent from the young man. And again, 90% passing accuracy, 37 out of 41 passes, really solid. 2 accurate long balls, okay with his duels, 1 out of 4 aerial. You can forgive him. He's a baby. Like he'll grow. He'll be fine. He'll get tankier. But yeah, really, really, really impressive performance from him. One little silly foul that he probably shouldn't have given away, but everybody does, don't they? So I need to give him a number.
You do.
I want to give him an 8, but I'm going to give him a 7 purely because of the fading. I feel like that's really harsh, but I kind of have to. We can't give him better marks because we like him. It's a 7.
Well, for his performance, I want to give him an 8. I thought he showed immense maturity for someone so young, playing such a responsible role on the side and generally carrying it off, pretty good. Step up too far for the goal, 1 error, foul here and there. But I will give him an 8 because it's the first time he's really played in such a responsible position. I thought he had a really good game and positive signs for the future for him because he can kind of fulfill more than one role in that midfield for us now. His partner there for a lot of the time was Sean Longstaff, so let's mark him next.
That was a tricky one because I thought defensively he put himself about really well, covered a lot of ground. The little experiment where he was hugging the touchline and was out wider than Miggy, I didn't like that. That didn't work at all. It's not Sean's game. I don't think it worked for him. Early doors when he was doing stuff like he pinged off the early warning shot for Matt Sells. I liked that. I was quite surprised that forced a corner, actually. I think we all were. And yeah, really, really sound defensively, contributed. He hasn't got the technical ability to go and do funny stuff out on the wing, and it just didn't work. Like that is what we bought Tonali to do. That works when Tonali does it. It doesn't work when Sean tries it, unfortunately. But he did a lot right. I'll give him a 7 because I think his engine and his defending was really, really important.
Yeah, I agree with you. For exactly what you've said there. The experiment playing him, kind of letting him move wide and outflank Miggy, if you like. Didn't work for me. But his general ball retention was good. His work rate was outstanding as always. And he took up some good defensive positions for us, so I agree with you. Who should we do next on? The King.
Bruno. Well, I mean, that's an easy one, isn't it? He gets a 10. He played deep occasionally, but it was mostly sort of an 8, left-sided 8-ish, kind of into where 10s play. It depended on what kind of shape we took up and where people were positioned. It depended where Gordon was. It was outrageous. He was running the show. He lost the ball in a silly position once, but it was a lot higher up the pitch actually. So when Bruno does lose the ball, if he's playing as an attacking midfielder, it's not as much of an issue. They've still got a lot to do. So yeah, it's an easy decision. He scored 2 goals. He was magnificent. He gets a 10. Like I don't know how when somebody plays that well and scores 2 goals, I don't know how you can give him less than a 10 in my opinion. But yeah, 10.
And he's the only player I think we've ever ranked that 10 don't seem enough for him. That was another one of those appearances for me. He was outstanding and 2 fantastic goals, 2 great finishes. Yeah, 10 out of 10 all day long. He's the best midfielder I've ever seen playing in Newcastle shirt, and he's one of the best players, I've got to say. Outstanding. Forward 3 now. Let's go to the right first, Miggy.
I mean, happy birthday, Miguel, but
not going to get many candles here, I don't think.
I'll be consistent. I mean, he was 30, so we'll go with the big 3, and I'll give him a 3. I thought that was one of his worst performances of the season. Positionally, he was in the right place. There was one move I liked where he tried to challenge for the ball in the box and get a little flick on, and Matt Sells nearly fumbled it. That could have come to something, but can anybody else remember anything? I mean, kept losing the ball. I mean, we were trying something a little bit different in shape-wise. Normally, he kind of runs out wide, waits for Trippier to catch up with him. We didn't really do that. So we did try something very different, and he really struggled to kind of catch on to what was needed to be done. It just didn't work. Yeah, 3. I can't give him any higher than a 3.
The only good thing I can remember him doing in the time he was on the pitch was a tackle in our own half. That's it. He retrieved the ball from, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Nuno, the fullback. However, the fullback did go past him on about 4 occasions after that. I'm going to give him a 2. I thought it was absolutely dreadful. And he's got to improve if he wants to keep his place, because I think Jacob Murphy's a far better player than him. I've got to say. He's got more to his game, gives us more. And I wish we'd sold him, actually. I really do. I wish he'd have fancied the Saudi Arabian countryside, or desert as it's known. Because
I don't think you can teach him new tricks at this point. Not to that extent. Whereas with Murphy, Murphy would understand that a lot more. I wonder what would have happened if was the team lineup committed before the presumably it was committed before the warm up, so it was always going to be Miggy starting. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Murphy learns more and listens and would take on more positionally and changing things. I don't know. That didn't work at all.
Yeah, smiles and running a lot doesn't work anymore, I'm afraid, and he didn't even smile yesterday. So yeah, 2 for me. Other side of the pitch, Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, very very quiet day for him, but still was very very important to the way we play. They had to be very careful. I actually thought Neco Williams kind of did quite well against Gordon, to be honest. There's not many fullbacks I think have done that well against Gordon this year, but Neco Williams actually handled Gordon fairly well. Still tidy. 4 out of 10 ground duels we could have done with him being a bit more physical there, but the wide cover was Yates, and he'd got Niakate as the centre half he was running into. 3 free kicks for us. I feel like this is going to be the lowest score I've ever given Gordon. I think I'm going to give him a 6. I don't think he really got into the game as much, but it's not that he did anything wrong. Not quite what he normally is.
I think he ran out of steam around the 65-minute mark, and I think maybe he should have gone off then. But I thought in the first half, I thought it was quite threatening. I'll give him a 7.
Yeah, the space he creates and the work rate, really important. But Maybe a
But
6 is a bit harsh. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh there.
no, I mean, I can understand why you give him that because, I mean, at the end of the day, the bloke getting him up next, he received no service from either side of the pitch all day, really. So Callum Wilson, he's hard to mark. It looks on the face of it, looks like a poor game, but I think he's been. I'm going to give him a 6 myself because it's not his game to be hitting the channels. He's not quick enough to do that anymore. And we saw that in the second half when he could have, if he had the pace, he could have gone straight in on goal. But 3 men soon converged around him, caught him up, and surrounded him. And physically wasn't strong enough for the men mounted of Murillo and Niakate at the back for Forest. But also there was no service for him to get kind of anything to it. So I'll give him a 6. What do you think, Callum Wilson?
I think that's really generous. I'm going to give him a 3 as well. I thought he had an equally as bad game as Miggy did. I think there's maybe you could stretch it to a 4 because of the help he gave us to see out the game and shielding the ball and the fine that was okay. I'll change it to a 4 because that was good. But I mean, in his defense, Niakate is enormous, and we've said this the last 2 years. We've done previews against Forest. Niakate is too much for him. He did score 2 years ago, the opening day of the season, but it was the most ridiculous, outrageous finish. It was a great finish, but physically he can't do it against a guy like that, which I can't blame him for. Like, he's enormous. Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything. We spoke about this last night. I think his legs have completely gone in terms of build-up and what he can contribute to us build-up wise. I think the press is fine. It's okay. But in terms of just general build-up, making a few runs, holding the ball up, he just can't do it. It's gone. A few people have said in the chat early tonight that maybe he's just getting his fitness back because he's just come back from injury. I really hope that's right. I really hope you're right because at the moment he just looks like his pace is completely gone. I'm praying it's that it will come back in 2 weeks. I really hope so because at the moment he's just going to be a fox in the box for us because there's nothing else there now. Unless I'm wrong, I really hope I'm wrong and he gets an extra 5 yards in a couple of weeks' time. Fingers crossed. But yeah, 4 from me for Wilson.
If he's fit, that is, because of course he's hurt his arm, hasn't he?
Well, yeah.
Samson says, think Gordon was supposed to be replaced by Barnes, but Howell had to hook Miggy instead. So we'll do the subs next, I guess. And he was the first, wasn't he? But Harvey Barnes, was he the first one on? I think he was.
Yeah, on the hour mark for Miggy. I think his kind of him being out there helped with the space for Bruno's goal. It wasn't his best performance, but it was solid. His technical abilities there, but his data doesn't look particularly good with 0 dribbles, 0 out of 3 duels. But, he did a lot of important work, especially shielding the ball towards the end of the game. I thought was really cool. I mentioned this yesterday. That's why you buy a 26-year-old who's ready-made because he already reads the game situation and the game state really well. He knew to shield the ball. He knew to waste time to see the game out. I'll give him a 6. I thought it was solid and exactly what we needed. He did the right things.
Yeah, I mean, his stats aren't exactly great, are they? But to the eye, he's got great vision. A couple of fantastic passes he made, although it was just slightly a yard behind his target. But the actual spots for the pass to go ahead in the first place was fantastic. And I think with minutes on the pitch, that's only going to improve for us. I've been quite critical of him, but he's clearly a very technical player, very clever player as well. So I think 6 is fair for him. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him, if I'm honest. Now, who was next? Was it Livramento next?
Yeah, Tino came on the 81st minute for Miley.
And Miley. We're going to give him a 6.
Yeah, I think we'll give him a flat 6. He tidied up where necessary. He didn't really get a lot of the ball. How many times? He touched the ball 12 times, 7 out of 8 passes. Yeah, it was solid. It's been the go-to change is bring Livramento on and go to wing backs. It's not my favourite change. I'd prefer we brought on another midfielder, but we haven't got one, so we have to do it this way.
Yeah, back to the 5 at the back, wasn't it, when he came on? I think flat 6 is fair. That was it for substitutes, wasn't it?
Kraft came on for Gordon.
Oh, of course, he did Kraft it, but we're going to mark him
before the end of the game. He was only on for 1 minute plus added time, so
I think he may have touched the ball once or twice, but
didn't touch the ball at all.
He didn't.
No passes, no touches of the ball. That must be boring, mustn't it? Getting subbed on and never even touching the ball.
But he does pick up the win bonus, Sato.
Well, yeah, technically.
So just the manager now. What's Eddie Howe getting this week?
I mean, I'm going to be really generous here. I'm going to give him a 10.
Right.
Because I don't think either of the goals are down to the coaching staff or the manager. He's not, Miggy and Longstaff mucking about with it and Miley making the wrong choice to step up. He won't have coached that. That's just a player error. I think he coached the shape, the system, the ideas really, really well. Loads of interesting stuff. I think I'm not just going to rate Eddie. I think it's worth rating the whole coaching setup with Tyndall. I'm going to go for a 10 because I think the preparation in the last 3 weeks, the work they've done in the training ground, look a little bit fitter. Players are returning. He's really trying to solve problems, change things up, and you can see he's trying to fix things. And we're learning, we're trying new things. I love that, and I'm going to give him a 10 for it. I think that's really, really important.
I love the system change. I love the formation change. I really did. I think it worked to a massive part with us winning the game, if I'm perfectly honest. Freeing Bruno was a fantastic move. Wish we'd done it earlier in the season, if I'm perfectly honest. But still, he's done it now. So people that say that Eddie isn't flexible, he is, because he's obviously done it. So for that, I'm going to mark him highly. But I think he should have pulled Gordon off a little bit before he did. So instead of giving him a 10, I'm going to give him a 9. But apart from the Gordon substitution, which I thought should have come a little bit earlier, I think
I've got to redress Paul Tully because you keep banging on about this. It's not the balls through which aren't being addressed. They are being addressed, but it's player error that's causing it. When someone steps up when they're not supposed to, they're trying to coach it better. It's getting better. We're not being cut through as often. I feel like that's really fair to state that it is getting a bit better, and it's purely the decision making from players. You can see they're doing work on the training ground for it. The shape's changing a bit. I'm pretty happy with what's being done to try and stop that from happening. Like, he can't physically get them to make the right choice on the day. All they can do is coach it.
I mean, for that chance, if Lewis Miley's 3 years older and a little bit more disciplined, that goal isn't scored. The fact he's got excited with his attacking and pushed himself a little bit more on the pitch, that's created the gap for him to pass into. So I agree with Sato for 100% there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just because they scored from it doesn't mean he's not trying to fix it. It's the right way of going about it. It's a way, which is because there are a few ways you could go about it. You're saying, bring in an extra umphy midfielder and put a faster left back on. That is a way to address it. Eddie Howe and the staff are addressing it in a different way. It is also a correct way of doing it. It's just if the player makes the wrong choice in a move, it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. Tactics wise, it just means someone made the wrong choice in that moment, which is always going to be a thing, right? It's player decisions. You can't. It's not baseball. It's not just numbers. There's a lot more of an element to it in football. It doesn't mean it's wrong.
Julie says, excellent game plan. Ref not giving fouls at key moments helped their goals. That is correct also. I think one of the Ryan Yates stamp on Bruno's foot was directly before their second goal, wasn't it? So,
for the second goal, yeah.
Wouldn't have happened had the referee have been alive or awake or whichever way you say it. Mad Dogs gets 10 from Ian. Howe gets 7 from Robert. The fans get 10. The fans also always get 10. They were very, very
incredible,
vociferous yesterday in their hordes behind that goal there. So there you go. That's the end of the show, folks. We've come to the end of the show. Another victory pushes us up the table. West Ham got a tonking today, so we're closer to them now. Man United win at Villa. That kind of the top 4 is still a possibility, or the top 5, if you like. But of course, a victory at Old Trafford will be very important towards that. And I see no reason why we can't get it. That's it, folks. We've come to the end of the show. Thanks you all for watching on a cold Sunday night. Thanks to the mods for doing their job in the background, and thanks to Sato for his diligent work with the stats. Until tomorrow night, I guess we'll keep you informed. Keep your notification bell on to see what we're doing tomorrow. But until whenever we see you next, I wish you all a very good night.
Good way, the lads and lasses.
Good night, folks.
Come back and check out the green.